Kate, the Future Queen, by Kate Nicholl. Chapter 8. Waity Katie. The weeks after the split were incredibly difficult for Kate and her family, and friends rallied around to support her. Fortunately, the media interest in her every move eventually died down, giving her some time to think about what she was going to do. Her life had come to a standstill. The man she hoped to one day marry had told her it was over, and now Kate was alone. For her, the future had always been William, and she had relegated every other part of her life to second place. She took her mother's advice and decided to turn what had happened into something positive. She now had an opportunity to think about herself and what she wanted to do. One friend from Marlborough, Alicia Fox-Pitt, had been in touch to see if Kate wanted to take part in a charity boating challenge. A group of women, who called themselves the Sisterhood, had decided to row across the English Channel to raise money for 2 children's charities, and Kate thought it sounded like an excellent idea for a worthwhile cause. The criticism she had received in the wake of the split had wounded her, and she badly wanted to prove that she wasn't just William's former girlfriend, as she was now referred to in the press, but a bright, determined, and driven young woman with a life of her own. Since the breakup in April, she had been inundated with interview requests and had been offered a multi-million-dollar book deal, but she would never dream of discussing her past with William. Secretly, she hoped there might be a reconciliation, but for the moment, she needed to focus on herself. She picked up the phone and called Emma Sale, who was organizing the race. "I first spoke to her in April on the phone after she and William had broken up," remembered Emma. "She said she wanted to be involved with something, and I told her about the race, and she signed up in May." Taking her place at the helm, Kate took the tiller and steered down the River Thames. Although she had learned how to sail a 72-foot Challenger during her gap year, a dragon boat was an altogether different experience. Emma made Kate her co-helm, and Kate, who as a child enjoyed sailing holidays in Norfolk with her family, had proved herself to be a natural. "The idea was to split the rowing between us," said Emma. The boat was heavy, but Kate was strong and well coordinated. She was able to deal with the currents and waves, and I was very impressed with how good she was. The race, from Dover to Cap Gris-Nez, near Calais, was quite a challenge. The Sisterhood, a group of 21 young women, was competing against the all-male Brotherhood, and Kate was expected at every 6 a.m. training session without fail. Having taken a week's compassionate leave, she was now back at Jigsaw, and the early morning starts on the river were not her usual choice before a full day's work. However, she soon found that rowing was a form of therapy, and on this hazy morning, as she steered down the River Thames past Chiswick and downriver to Hammersmith, with the frenetic exercise clearing her mind, there was time to reflect. Since the split, Kate had gone through a noticeable transformation. It wasn't just the shorter hemlines and daring outfits, she was more spontaneous without William at her side and more outgoing. Behind the scenes, Carol had encouraged her not to dwell on what had happened, but to live her life to the full. Pippa, who had just finished her finals, had made it her duty to take her older sister out, insisting that sitting on the sofa at home would do her no good. A steady stream of gilt-edged invitations to the best parties in town dropped onto the doormat of their Chelsea apartment, and Pippa kept a busy social diary for them both. They rarely strayed further than Chelsea, and evenings out entailed drinking at Mahiki, dancing at Duchess, or sipping champagne at a glitzy party. With their amazing figures, glossy hair, and matching smiles, they were a tantalizing and photogenic duo. Pippa, at 5'6", the shorter of the sisters by 4 inches, Kate stands at an impressive 5'10", was always the more outgoing, steering Kate around and fielding off the paparazzi. That season, they topped Tatler magazine's prestigious Most Invited list and, according to one newspaper, were now known not simply as the Middleton sisters but as the Wisteria sisters, because they were highly decorative, terribly fragrant, and have a ferocious ability to climb. William was certainly seeing a more tantalizing side to his ex-girlfriend and must have been reminded of the Kate who sashayed down the runway in her underwear and a see-through dress all those years before at St. Andrews. Without the prince to take up all her time, Kate also had the chance to rekindle old friendships, and she was grateful for the chance to spend a week in Ibiza with Emilia d'Erlinger. Carol had arranged for them to stay at Gary's villa, La Maison de Bang Bang, and although she was very low, spending huge amounts of time on the phone, walking around the pool, according to her uncle, she made an effort to go out to the fashionable Blue Marlin Beach Club, where she and Emilia drank cocktails and danced through the night. Kate loved spending time with her old best friend. It was, she said, the one good thing to have come out of the split. Back in London, Kate forged a new friendship with Emma Sale. They were spending a lot of time training together and got along well. They shared a love of sports, they both lived close to the King's Road, and they had friends in common. In between training sessions, they would meet for coffee and get to know each other better. She was very easygoing, and we all got on with her. She didn't have any airs or graces, Emma recalled. We got to see a very different girl from the Kate you read about in the papers. She was lots of fun and really relaxed when she was training. She didn't make a big deal about the fact that she used to date William. In fact, she kept it very quiet. A lot of the girls didn't know who she was at first, which really helped her settle in. She was very dedicated and always on time for training. She was also very fit and worked out at the gym. I remember she dropped down to a size 6 while we were training. She was devastated when she and William split up. No doubt the emotional upset was another contributing factor to Kate's dramatic weight loss. By mid-May, however, William and Kate were back in touch and regularly talking on the phone. At the end of the month, they secretly met up at Clarence's house and at a pub close to Highgrove, where William told her he wanted to get back together. Kate didn't want to rush into anything. She had been badly hurt and told William she needed some time. According to Emma, she was in touch with William the whole time she was training with us. She was very honest and open with me, and she always referred to William as the love of her life. He was the most important person in her life, and that was very obvious. She would always speak about him very lovingly. To her he was just William. They had a very normal relationship and were very much in love. She said it was the best relationship she ever had, and that when it's the two of them, it is perfect. It's when they are in the public eye it gets so complicated. Back at Jigsaw's head office, Kate's colleagues noticed that she was spending more time on her mobile phone, talking in private outside the office in the parking lot. The start of June 2007 marked a pivotal moment. Kate and William had been invited to a party thrown by their mutual friend Sam Whaley-Cohen at his family's 17th-century manor house, and according to one guest, they spent hours deep in conversation. There's an idea that I was like Cupid with a bow and arrow. People loved the idea that somebody put them back together, but they put themselves together far more, Mr. Whaley-Cohen recalled of the night in an interview with the Mail on Sunday. William pleaded with Kate to give their relationship another go, and by the time he invited her to a party on June 9 at his barracks in Dorset, she had made her mind up. Dressed as a nurse, a rather sexy one in fishnet tights and a short dress, for a freakin' and naughty, themed fancy dress party, William followed her around like a lost puppy, according to one guest who said they stayed on the dance floor most of the night. As the clock struck midnight, William leaned in and kissed Kate. They couldn't keep their hands off each other, recalled the eyewitness. William didn't care that people were looking. His friends were joking that they should get a room. William didn't need any persuading and took Kate by the hand and led her out of the party. When she returned to training the following week, she was noticeably happier, according to Emma, one of the few people who knew about the reconciliation. The clandestine reunion didn't stay a secret for long, however, and before the month was out, the Mail on Sunday reported that the couple was back together. At the palace the news came as no surprise. For some weeks, eagle-eyed courtiers had been observing Kate's Audi coming and going from its reserved spot at Clarence House. She was in residence whenever William was home from Dorset, and as well as spending some quality time with him, she had been helping him finalize the running order for a concert he and Harry had planned to commemorate the life of their mother. The summer of 2007 marked the 10th anniversary of the princess's death, and the concert was to be a celebration of her life. While Harry had been in Canada on a military training exercise, William had overseen and approved the all-star lineup for the Wembley concert. The night before, Kate had slipped unnoticed into Clarence House to help William make the final tweaks to his speech. The princes had reserved the entire royal box for their family and friends, but in order not to deflect from the purpose of the day, William and Kate agreed not to sit together. Instead, Kate sat next to James and Pippa, now nursing her own broken heart after breaking up with her long-term boyfriend, J.J. Jardine Patterson. Before the start of the concert, William had been quizzed about his on-off relationship with Kate during an interview with the NBC Today show and had managed to field the question well. A worldwide audience was tuned in to watch the concert, and he desperately didn't want it to be eclipsed by speculation about him and Kate. Later, while Harry openly kissed his on and off Zimbabwean girlfriend Chelsea Davy in the front row, William and Kate were careful not to make eye contact, though when Kate sang along to Take That Back for Good, she allowed herself a momentary glance at William. It wasn't long until they could be together, away from the gaze of the media at the VIP after-party. According to one eyewitness, William couldn't take his eyes off Kate's revealing white lace dress and knee-high boots. They danced to the Body Rockers' hit I Like the Way You Move, which, according to friends, was their song, and they were later spotted canoodling in a dark corner. However, determined not to be photographed together, they went home separately at 4 a.m. the following morning. Just days after the concert, Kate was back at the helm, and with race day fast approaching, the Sisterhood's Challenge was now headlining news. With rumors buzzing that the couple had reunited, the paparazzi attended every training session, and the palace was concerned that the event was becoming a media circus. Once again, Kate had become the story, and when she appeared on the cover of Hello magazine posing with her teammates in their dragon boat beneath the headline, posing exclusively for Hello with her crewmates, alarm bells rang at the palace. Fully made up and beaming for the camera, Kate was accused of double standards in the press. One of her lawyers, Gerard Tyrrell, had complained to the Press Complaints Commission about the level of harassment Kate was subjected to, yet here she was seemingly happy to take part in a promotional photo shoot. The late Daily Mirror journalist Sue Carroll suggested she was being driven by the oxygen of publicity, while Daily Mail columnist Richard Kay noted that the Sisterhood's practice sessions had become a magnet for publicity. The timing was unfortunate. The issue of the paparazzi's relentless pursuit of Kate had formed part of a landmark report by Parliament's Culture, Media and Sport Committee, titled Self-Regulation of the Press. The report, published in July 2007, concluded that with regard to Kate, harassment was evident and editors could no longer use paparazzi pictures of her. The watershed moment had been her 25th birthday, when she was besieged by photographers outside her London home. The committee described Kate as the victim of clear and persistent harassment by the paparazzi. It was a major victory for Kate, her lawyers, and the palace, but her participation in the now very public dragon boat race posed a serious dilemma and threatened to undo all their efforts in protecting Kate. She could not have it both ways, and according to Emma, the palace advised her to pull out of the race. When the magazine came to photograph us at one of our training sessions, I'd already told them Kate wouldn't be in the picture, but when the day came, she was actually relaxed and wanted to be in on the team photograph. The magazine cropped Kate out and put her on the front page and made it the Kate story, with a whole 6 pages about her on the inside. Kate was devastated. At the next training session, there were 40 photographers, and it was a nightmare. The whole thing was becoming a media circus, and Kate said she was under a lot of pressure to pull out by Clarence House. I thought it was a great shame, and I actually told her I thought she was making a mistake, because it was the one chance Kate could prove to the world who she really was. While her sisters rowed 21 miles across the English Channel that August, Kate paddled with William in the warm waters of the Indian Ocean off the coast of Africa. They had flown out to the luxury island of Des Roches in the Seychelles for what they both knew was a make-or-break holiday. The prince had booked a $750 per night private bungalow, and in order not to be recognized, they checked in as Martin and Rosemary Middleton. It was the perfect escape, and they spent the day swimming, taking kayaks out to the coral reef, and dining together on the terrace of their private villa. It was the first time they had been alone since their breakup, and they spent much of the holiday hidden away in the privacy of their beachfront bungalow. They had plenty to discuss. William was nearing the end of his training with the Blues and Royals, and would be graduating as a troop commander in September, which effectively meant he was qualified to go to war like his younger brother, who was being posted to Afghanistan at Christmas. Harry had been due to go to Iraq that summer, but the tour of duty was cancelled after Islamic militants vowed to kill him. It was exactly the reason that William, as heir apparent, could never be posted to the front line, despite his determination to be treated the same as every other soldier. As the future head of the armed forces, he would be assigned to work for each of the forces instead. Kate knew that William wanted to serve in the military more than anything else. She understood that it was his means of having a sense of purpose. To serve his queen and country meant everything to him, and she respected and supported him. But she had to think about her own future, too. She knew William was committed to the military, but what about his commitment to her? She needed some assurance that one day they would marry, if they planned to stay together. They had weathered their most serious split to date, and she needed to know that they shared the same aspiration, ultimately to be together. There on the Paradise Island, William promised Kate that he was in the relationship for the long term. For the very first time they talked seriously about marriage, and with the ocean before them and beneath the night sky, they made a pact to marry. They didn't agree to get married there and then. What they made was a pact, a member of their inner circle explained. William told Kate she was the one, but he was not ready to get married. He promised her his commitment and said he would not let her down, and she in turn agreed to wait for him. William was due to spend 6 months on attachment with the Royal Air Force, RAF, and the Royal Navy, and he would be away for much of the time. Kate listened carefully. She knew the sacrifices the future would entail, but she loved William and was prepared to wait for him. They sealed their secret deal with a kiss. Back in England, William completed his tank training course, while Kate used the new chapter in her life to assess her own career. She had been working at Jigsaw for nearly a year, and although she was happy, she wasn't doing a job she was passionate about. Her real interest was in photography, and so, after talking to Belle Robinson, she handed in her notice in September. Kate had acquired an impressive portfolio of her own photographs during her travels, and she had started collating her work. According to Emma, she talked about going abroad and pursuing a career in photography. She was considering going to Paris and also New York. Now that she and William were back together, heading overseas was a less attractive option, so instead she approached the esteemed celebrity photographer Alastair Morrison, who was based in Windsor and whose work she had admired at the National Portrait Gallery in London. Mr. Morrison invited Kate to his gallery. She was interested in photography and the history of art, and she got in touch with me, said Mr. Morrison. I was based in Windsor, and she was at her parents' home a lot, which was just down the motorway. She would often come to visit me at the gallery. I think I was seen as someone who could look after her interests and be discreet. When Kate said she wanted to curate an exhibition, Mr. Morrison suggested that she start with a series of his celebrity photographs. Kate's timing was fortuitous, and she was available to start work immediately. She spent several weeks coordinating the photographs and then worked on planning a party to launch the exhibition. She asked the Robinsons if they would allow her to use the shop at Bluebird in Chelsea. Catherine organized everything from the invitations to the selection of work and put together a guest list for the launch, which included collectors, my list, the Bluebird's list and her own, including her family and friends, said Mr. Morrison. Carol, Michael, and James came to the opening party, but William stayed away until the end of the evening, not wishing to upstage his girlfriend. Prince William joined us for dinner, confirmed Mr. Morrison, who was so impressed with Kate's work he continued to mentor her afterwards. I encouraged her to pursue her photography, specifically some wonderful landscape work that she had done over her travels. At the same time, I introduced her to my printers, as she was naturally keen to see some good quality prints of her work. She has a natural eye for landscape composition and uses light very well, often focusing on images heavily dominated by skies at all times of the day. Color was always her preference. Most of her work is a mixture of many locations and is almost exclusively sky-dominated. I encouraged her not to generalize, but to think about documenting one area through a number of different landscapes. By now Kate had pretty much moved out of her Chelsea apartment and was mostly living at Clarence House. The Prince, who had moved from Dorset back to Combermere Barracks in Windsor, was in London more frequently, and once again rumours of an engagement circulated. As 2007 came to a close, a public opinion poll in Britain found that 80% of Britons believed that Kate would be a good addition to the royal family, while courtiers at the palace reverted to the forward-planning diary for potential dates. There was no doubt that Kate was back in the fold when she joined the royals' annual festive pheasant shoot at Windsor Park just before Christmas. She had been criticised by animal rights campaigners after being photographed deer hunting with Prince Charles in Scotland, but Kate had no intention of giving it up. She enjoyed the sport and often hunted with William, something she loved because it was a quiet and peaceful time for the two of them to be together. The new year heralded a fresh start for the couple. They had celebrated Kate's 26th birthday at the beginning of January with a quiet dinner at Clarence House, a far happier and settled occasion than the year before. Once again, however, her birthday coincided with William leaving, this time for a 4-month pilot training course at RAF Cranwell in Lincolnshire. William had been looking forward to his secondment, temporary assignment, with the RAF. He had dreamed of being a pilot ever since he was a little boy, and his uncle Andrew had regaled him with stories of flying helicopters in the Falklands. Now he was training for his own pilot's badge, known in the RAF as wings, on a fast-track course that entailed early morning starts and late-night cramming for exams. His career, according to his aides, was his #1 priority, and once again, they tried to dampen rumors of an engagement. Kate was prepared for the time apart and was reassured by the sheer intensity of the training, which left little time for William to party and misbehave. In March 2008, they flew to Closters, and this time Pippa joined them. The sisters loved challenging one another on unmarked slopes. They were both better skiers than William, and Kate even outshone the protection officer who accompanied them down the slopes. Gliding expertly down the ski run, she conjured memories of Diana, who used to delight in out-skiing Charles on the very same mountains. This was not the only echo of the late princess. Back at home, Kate had joined the prestigious Harbour Club in Chelsea, where Princess Diana also used to work out. On Friday afternoons, she went shopping for groceries at the King's Road branch of Waitrose before driving to Clarence House to prepare for William's arrival from RAF Cranwell. The prince called her when he was en route, and Kate would always have a hot bath ready for him and a home-cooked dinner in the oven. Although their living space there was small, she had overseen a small refurbishment, and the Osborne and Little wallpaper she had selected made their living quarters far more homey. One friend, who was invited over for supper, recalled a scene of marital bliss. Kate cooked and let William enjoy a glass of wine. Every so often he helped her stir and taste a sauce. They were very sweet together, very tactile, and they had a habit of finishing each other's sentences. They had been advised by Charles to stay away from nightclubs after their last visit to Duchess had ended in an unseemly scuffle among the paparazzi, who were desperate to get a picture of the couple now that they were back together. Because they were seen so rarely in public these days, photographs of William and Kate were worth a lot of money. When Kate had left Duchess, she was nearly knocked over as she tried to get into a waiting car. There had been another concerning episode when Kate and her family celebrated James's 21st birthday in April. Party promoter Ed Taylor, a friend of Kate's, had arranged a VIP table for them at Raffles nightclub on the King's Road, but unfortunately James downed one too many shots, and according to photographer Niraj Tanna, who was there, Michael had to literally carry James to the car. He was all over the place and couldn't stand up properly. Carol was jumping up at me trying to push my camera so I couldn't take the photograph. James was swerving on the pavement, and then he started urinating on the street. That's when Carol started going mad and jumping up at my face trying to push the camera so I couldn't take a frame. Kate, who was said to be mortified, had left the club through a back entrance. But it wasn't just James, however, who had come under scrutiny. William was at the center of an escalating argument in the press after it was reported that he had flown a Chinook helicopter to his cousin Peter Phillips's stag party on the Isle of Wight hours after graduating from RAF Cranwell. The 2-hour sortie had been cleared by his senior flying officers, but there was a furor over the fact that the prince had been allowed to fly a $15 million helicopter to a stag party when there was a shortage of Chinooks in Afghanistan, where the aircraft is used to ferry in supplies to British troops. Questions were asked about why William had been allowed to use the aircraft as a taxi service. The RAF insisted the flight was a legitimate training sortie which tested his new skills, but the episode descended into farce when it also emerged that William had made a number of practice flights to Highgrove, Windsor Castle, and to Oakacre, the Middletons' family home. Carol and Michael, who had no idea William was arriving by air, ran into their garden after hearing an almighty noise in the adjacent field, only to discover it was William buzzing in. The storm over the flights blew over a few days later, however, when William flew to Afghanistan in a top-secret overnight visit to see British troops. The trip had been planned for some time, but the Ministry of Defence was accused of staging a public relations exercise to save face. Harry had recently returned from serving on the front line in Afghanistan after finally realizing his dream to fight for his country, but William was only able to make a fleeting visit to meet with RAF servicemen in Kandahar. Nonetheless, his mission was significant because he brought home the body of a British serviceman who had been killed in combat. Kate had been invited to the graduation ceremony at RAF Cranwell on Friday, April 11, 2008, to watch William get his wings, and she watched proudly as they were pinned onto his pristine uniform. As she chatted with Camilla and William's private secretary Jamie Lowe the Pinkerton in the audience, Kate seemed very comfortable, her presence in the front row signifying that she and William were back on track. The following month, William asked if she would attend his cousin Peter Phillips's wedding on his behalf because he had been invited to the wedding of Batty and Craig, Jekka's brother, in Kenya. It was a year since their breakup, and the fact that Kate was representing William at a family wedding was a sign of just how serious the relationship was. Autumn Kelly, at St. George's Chapel in the grounds of Windsor Castle on May 17, and all the senior members of the family were attending. Harry and Chelsea, who were back together after a romantic reunion in Botswana, had been invited, and Kate was grateful, for she didn't know many of the guests. Her friendship with Chelsea was lukewarm. They were completely different characters, and the bubbly Zimbabwean got along better with Pippa. Kate had made an effort to befriend Chelsea, inviting her clothes shopping, but Chelsea had turned the offer down, leading to a coolness between them. On this occasion, however, they bonded, because they were both nervous about meeting the Queen. Although she was a regular guest at the royal palaces and had been to Sandringham for the Boxing Day shoot, this was, rather surprisingly, the first time Kate would be formally introduced to the Queen. Understandably, without William by her side, she was shy and later recalled, it was amongst a lot of other guests, and she was very friendly. The Queen had made a point of coming over to say hello to Kate, but according to Lady Elizabeth Anson, the introduction was brief, there wasn't much time to speak. Meeting someone as far as the Queen is concerned is having tea with them, so for the Queen, this was an introduction rather than a proper meeting. Despite the brevity of their encounter, the Queen was interested in Kate and wanted to learn more about the young woman who looked set to marry into her family one day. William had sought his grandmother's advice during their brief separation, and the Queen was pleased that they were now happily back together, but she was concerned that Kate did not have a career. Although she was working on her photography, it had been 6 months since Kate quit Jigsaw, and there seemed to be no urgency on her part to return to work. For the Queen, who carries out hundreds of engagements and travels around the country conducting official duties practically every day of the year, the idea of not working was unthinkable. Even during holidays, her red government boxes, containing confidential parliamentary papers for her to read, are always close at hand. She has a strong work ethic and has raised all of her children to follow her lead, putting duty ahead of self. At the time, a source close to the family said, the Queen has no idea what Kate does. Privately, she is very concerned about what the repercussions could be if Kate is not in a stable job as and when William is ready to propose. The Queen is very close to her grandson, and they of course discuss Kate. Her Majesty is very aware that it's a serious and long-term relationship. Although they are not yet engaged, it seems more likely than not that Kate will be a royal bride one day, and the Queen is of the opinion that Kate should be working. She believes in a modern monarchy and feels very strongly that the royals should be leading by example. Swanning from one 5-star holiday resort to another is not the prerequisite for a young woman possibly destined to be queen. To observers, Kate did seem to be having rather frequent holidays, and the press, much to her frustration, had taken to calling her Waity Katie because she seemed happy to wait on the sidelines for a marriage proposal. This label stuck, and it hurt Kate, who felt she was in an impossible situation. The truth was she was in limbo. While Pippa was enjoying working for a London-based events company and James had started up his own business, Kate's career was on the back burner. It was impossible for her to commit to a full-time job while juggling her life around seeing William, who had started a 2-month-long assignment with the Royal Navy at the start of June. The Prince was following in royal footsteps when he enrolled at the Britannia Royal Naval College at Dartmouth. His great-grandfather, King George VI, had trained at the base, as had his grandfather and his father. Whereas William had a clear purpose to his life, right then flying naval helicopters and diving with nuclear submarines. Kate was becoming increasingly frustrated with her own lack of career. Mr. Morrison was still encouraging her to curate an exhibition of her own work. He genuinely believed in her ability to take compelling photographs, but Kate was worried she might face a further backlash. As with most young artists, the obstacle for Kate was confidence, and I think she was worried about being knocked. I encouraged her to look at her work and to edit it without asking for other people's opinions. I thought she could put together an exhibition, but she was worried that people would say that she was only being exhibited because of who she was. I think there was a fear of being criticized as well. I don't think the title Waity Katie was fair. She wasn't lazy and just waiting for William. She was very aware of what she was capable of doing, and she went ahead and did it. She found opportunities to work in art and photography. Kate was not, however, prepared to take the risk of showing her work and then be accused of cashing in on her royal connections. And while she was trying to forge her own future, her family watched helplessly from the sidelines. The concerns, at the highest level at the palace, were privately being referred to as the Kate problem and had already made front-page news in the British press. Carol wanted to put a plan in place before any further damage was done to Kate's reputation. She needed someone to shoot a new catalogue for party pieces and help set up First Birthdays, a new section on the site. Kate was perfectly equipped to do both. Photographing princess outfits and treasure chests was quite different from shooting landscapes, and Kate described the work as rather surreal to her friends, but according to Mr. Morrison, it was an important technique for Kate to master and a happy compromise. Still life is actually a good discipline. Kate may well have preferred doing landscapes, but this was part of her visual growing up. Working for party pieces was also a sensible stopgap opportunity for her. They are a very close family and very supportive of each other. Carol and Michael knew that Kate was going to be in a no-win situation, and I'm pretty sure they discussed the repercussions of being in the public eye. Carol's advice to all of the children was, "You must prepare yourself." I think she knew they weren't going to get patted on the back, and Kate particularly was always going to end up being criticized. People were always going to say that working for the family was easy. James had recently launched a do-it-yourself cake-making enterprise, Cake Kit, within the Party Pieces operation, and Kate helped to coordinate a new website. It was a perfect arrangement that would keep them both out of the headlines, especially James, whose penchant for going out to fashionable London nightclubs and joshing that he would one day be the brother of the future Queen had been generating column inches in the press. There was no chance of them being spied on at Party Pieces' Bucklebury-based head office, and although it wasn't the most inspiring of jobs, the photography kept Kate busy and earned her some money. Most importantly, it gave her the flexibility to work her schedule around William. This wasn't really a career choice. It was about being with the person she loved, who happened to be the heir to the throne, said Mr. Morrison. Kate had to prepare herself for what that meant. It wasn't about being Waity Katie, it was about being with William. Quite simply, they loved each other, wanted to be with each other, and had to filter themselves through the fog of expectancy. It was a sentiment echoed by her family and friends, and working for the family firm was considered the perfect solution. There was only one minor setback when Carol authorized a picture and biography of Kate to be posted on the website. It was designed as a positive PR move, but it backfired when the press accused Kate of breaching her own privacy, and within hours, the picture of her was removed from the website. With her schedule now flexible, on June 16, 2008, when William was invested into the Order of the Garter at Windsor Castle, Kate was there to watch. The ancient ceremony saw William appointed a Royal Knight of the Garter, one of the highest honors bestowed by the Queen upon her most trusted and dutiful knights, among them Prince Philip and Prince Charles. William was invested in Windsor Castle's Garter throne room and then installed during a service at St. George's Chapel. Seeing him in his ornate velvet robes and hat of ostrich plumes, Kate, who was watching the procession with Prince Harry, couldn't resist a giggle. Later that month, she had plenty of time to plan William's 26th birthday, a small celebration at Highgrove for a group of their friends. When William left the country to spend 5 weeks aboard HMS Iron Duke in the Caribbean at the end of the month, Kate kept herself busy at work. The Queen had quietly suggested to William that Kate get involved with a charity, and they both considered it an excellent idea. Party Pieces already had a connection with Starlight, a children's charity in the United Kingdom, and Carol regularly sent out complimentary Prince and Princess themed birthday party bags to hospices and children's wards around the country. Before he left for the Caribbean, William and Kate attended the Boodles Boxing Ball in June at the Royal Lancaster Hotel in London, where they took a table at the Black Tie Gala with some of their friends. The charity night, which involved a series of boxing matches between former Etonians and Cambridge graduates, was followed by a champagne dinner and raised $180,000 for the charity. Charlie Gilkes, one of the couple's friends, organized the gala, and Kate had arranged for cystic fibrosis sufferer Bianca Nicholas, who had sung that night, to meet William and Harry, which had thrilled the aspiring singer. Kate thought highly of the charity, which grants terminally ill children a once-in-a-lifetime wish, and she arranged to meet with Chief Executive Officer Neil Swan of the charity to see how she could help more. He recalled, Kate was working with Party Pieces at the time, and she came up with a clever idea for a party bag that doubled up as a coloring-in gift. She also designed some Starlight-themed crayons and other bits and pieces to go in the bags. To us, she was just Kate, and we would go and have meetings with her at Party Pieces, and sometimes she would come to us. She came up with lots of creative ideas for parties that we were arranging for sick children, and she did a lot of work below the radar. Wanting to learn more about the work of the charity and how it helped hospices and children's hospitals around the country, Kate began making secret trips to the Naomi House Hospice in Hampshire, close to her family home. She would drive to the hospice bearing gifts for the children, with whom she would spend hours reading and playing. The press never found out about the visits, which Kate wanted to keep below the radar. According to one senior source at the charity, we are used to working with high-profile people, and it is in our interests to keep the visits secret. A few of us were aware of the work Kate was doing in hospices at that time, but we were asked to keep it quiet. Kate found the visits deeply rewarding and grounding, and it gave her great pleasure to know that she was able to bring a ray of happiness to some seriously ill young people. It upset us a lot when we read in the papers that Kate was work-shy when she was actually doing a lot of charity work that no one knew about, said one of her friends. Kate recognized that her profile afforded her the opportunity to do something worthwhile. In September 2008, she joined forces with her friend Sam Whaley-Cohen and co-organized a charity roller skating disco to raise funds for a new ward at the Oxford Children's Hospital. Sam's brother, Tom, had been treated at the hospital for a rare form of bone cancer before his death, and Kate, who had been at Marlborough with Tom, was profoundly affected when he passed away at the young age of 20. She helped Sam plan the event at the Renaissance Rooms in Vauxhall, South London, and oversaw the guest list. Kate has been fantastic in using her contacts to get people along. She persuaded loads of people to commit. Her involvement has obviously raised the profile, Sam told the Daily Mirror after the event. The night was a sellout and raised $150,000, largely thanks to Kate, who whizzed around the skating rink in a pair of canary yellow hot pants and a shiny green sequined halter top. On her final lap, she fell flat on her rear, spread-eagled in a most unladylike manner. This, however, wasn't the only thing to knock Kate off her feet. William had announced, quite suddenly, that he wanted to join the RAF and become a search and rescue pilot, and the news had come as a surprise to Kate, the royal family, and the courtiers at the palace. The prince had completed his military assignments with all of the armed forces, and now he was at a crossroads in his career. There were two real options: returning to the household cavalry or quitting the forces. The press had speculated that, having finished his assignments, the prince would be under pressure from the palace to start carrying out more official engagements, but it wasn't what William wanted to do. He had seen his father struggle to carve a niche for himself as a king in waiting, and he didn't want the same fate, not yet. He had loved his time serving with the RAF, and now that he had his flying badge, he wanted to use it. The news that he was to join the RAF was made official on September 15, 2008. The time I spent with the RAF earlier this year made me realize how much I love flying, William said. Joining search and rescue is a perfect opportunity for me to serve in the forces operationally. With that single decision, Kate's life was turned upside down. She had expected a proposal once William had completed his military training, but instead, she was forced to accept that there would be no engagement anytime soon. Kate would have to wait even longer.